Good afternoon, lecturers. Welcome to today's Entrepreneurship and Business Management N4 webinar, hosted by Macmillan and Tropat. My name is Gan Krishna. I'm the National Sales Manager at Macmillan, responsible for Tibet. We are delighted to be hosting today's webinar with the objective of providing you, the lecturer, with additional support as you navigate the new curriculum changes. Our sample copies are ready and they're making their way to your campuses, so make sure you get a copy of yours. In the interim, you will be able to access an e-copy. I'll put up the link in the chat box for both the student book and the lecture guide. The platform we're using today is the GoToWebinar, and the control panel appears on the right of your screen. So please feel free to post your questions during the course of the presentation, and our presenter will tackle this later on. Our presenter today is Alma van Rensburg, who's a seasoned expert in the subject of entrepreneurship and business management. She brings with her a wealth of experience, 40 years in the college sector. She's been involved in authoring a number of books. She's been an examiner and a marker for many, many years. And you can rely on her to present the most important facts to you this afternoon as we take you through all the curricular changes which will be implemented in 2022. So it's over to Alma to start the presentation. Please sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and it's over to you, Alma.
Thank you so much, Gan, for the introduction. Also, a word of thanks to Macmillan for giving me the opportunity to, if I can use the word, launch this new syllabi or syllabus. And thank you also for you all joining this webinar. Now, in this webinar, we're going to have a look at the new curriculum outcomes. We're going to discuss briefly the impact of the changes, and we are going to indicate to you how this book, plus everything that goes with this, because there will be the student book, the lecturer's guide, the workbook, PowerPoint presentations. Some PowerPoint presentations will also have voice recordings. I think that is almost everything that you will need to make a huge success of offering this subject. Now, if we look at the new DHET curriculum, please take note that it will be implemented in January 2022, and I trust that you all have received it by now. Now, if we look at the general aims of the curriculum, you will know that nowadays entrepreneurship is really the buzzword in our country because we deal with a very high unemployment rate, and we need to equip the young people with skills, motivate them to start their own businesses. So we will have a look at the knowledge that you need to possess, the embedded knowledge to enable you to become an entrepreneur. We will look at a lot of practical applications as the focus of this subject is very much application. We will also look at the fact that in this book we try to incorporate challenges and also the environments that changed so that we can be relevant for the current situation in our country. Now, if we look at the specific aims of the curriculum, it's about strategic planning because you can't be an entrepreneur if you don't plan. It's about business changes, the very, very important macro, micro, and market environment. We need to try and develop the students to adapt to these different business environments. As you all know by now, we will have to look at the competitive analysis, how to start your business, the very, very important aspect of compiling a business plan. And I'm going to say it again, this business plan must be of such quality that a student can really take this to a financial institution to apply for finance if he or she wants to start an own business. And then right through this, mentorship plays a very, very important role. You will recall that in the old syllabus, there were 9 modules. They took away the 9th one and they just incorporate that in module 5, where you deal with the business plan. So module 9 was the presentation of the business plan, and this now just had been added in module 5. Please take note of the weighted values. Although when setting an entrepreneurship paper, it's sometimes difficult really to say what exactly the weighted value for a certain question is, because a question is normally a combination of all these modules. You are all familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, and if I might almost say, the not so popular compiling of the analysis grid. But this is what it should look like in your exam papers. The accent you will see is clearly placed on comprehension, synthesis, analysis, and evaluation. You know that with the ICAS guideline, there are 3 assessments: the business plan 20%, your first written test 30%, and then your internal examination 50%. Yes, we are aware that they changed it for this semester owing to COVID, but hopefully we will be back next year with 3 assessments. Paper 1, that will be based on all the work. This is the closed book exam, where you will mainly find direct questions: state, name, list, define, fit column A to column B, and multiple choice. Paper 2, this is the one that we really will have to prepare the students for. They struggle to apply their knowledge, and in this book, we really guide you and the student with many case studies, activities, examples on how to apply your knowledge. Please note that although paper 1 indicates 50 marks and paper 2 150 marks, that when you final mark is calculated, the paper 1 is converted to 100%, paper 2 also converted to 100%. So at the end, the contribution of paper 1 and paper 2 will be the same. Now let's go over to the book. I think you are so familiar with module 1, but we changed some of the examples. We added starter activities. You will see that I added quite a number of case studies based on COVID, as we need to stay relevant. And COVID is not going to leave us soon. And we also need to prepare the students on what will the challenges be if you, for example, now take COVID into account. Because for sure, this had and still have a huge impact on the world of the entrepreneur. Here and there, something changed, like the student will also have to do a personal entrepreneurial quality checklist, and from that they will then derive their strengths and their weaknesses, the so-called SWOT analysis. And you are also familiar with the personal resources. If I must say, changes in module 1, really hardly anything. Module 2, same story, no changes. But we try to incorporate in this book, and I think you will love it, color. The whole book, the parts of the book are now in color, but it's color coded with a plan. For example, the summaries will be in yellow. The business plan is in green. The activities is marked with orange. The case studies is marked with pink. And you know, I heard the other day, they say that if you present theory to a learner and it's colorful, the mind tends to remember it better than just script that is in black and pictures that are also in black and white. So I really think you will thoroughly enjoy the presentation of the creativity section with lots and lots of examples. You know that examples play a very important role in entrepreneurship because this assists the student in applying their knowledge. Market feasibility study, module 3. We took out the postal survey and we introduced you also to the online survey to make it more relevant. Otherwise, no changes, just as with the other modules, a lot of diagrams, tables. You know, I always say to the students that when you study a mind map or a table or a diagram, your mind remembers that much clearer than just long sentences. That is something else that I also took into account when I wrote this book. The possibility of language barriers. And we try to use a language that everybody will be able to understand. And we broke the theory down into shorter sentence and not long sentence that continue forever. The financial feasibility study, good news, also no curriculum changes, but we added more examples, more exercises, and something nice with using color is that the student will be able to see clearly the different lines used in the break-even analysis because the total cost line will now be a certain color, the variable cost, the total income, etc. I almost want to say most important part of entrepreneurship is the business plan. Now, lecturers, you will know that when you lecture entrepreneurship, you actually don't wait to come to module 5 before you take the students to this module. Already in module 1, when you do, for example, the personal resources. Module 2, where you look at how to come up with a creative idea. Module 3, your market feasibility, the pre set questionnaire to find out whether you do have a market. You incorporate this right from the beginning. So if you lecture it, refer them right from the start. If you do module 1, see what is in module 5 based on module 1 that they will need to complete their business plan so that they can start as soon as possible with the business plan. You will also see that right at the back of the book, there is a complete, really very simple business plan to guide the student what the end product should look like. And lecturers, students must learn to keep the concepts and the drawing a business plan simple. They mustn't work with millions and billions of rands. They must really work with a concept that is easy. It's always better to let them do a business plan on an enterprise that's not a service enterprise, because you will know that in the example they very often say refer to your business, what packaging will you use. Now, not all service enterprises have packaging, or let them then combine a service undertaking with a business making a profit selling products, for example. Now, you are very familiar with the SWOT analysis. It's not really new. The that just had been part of Module 9. I did elaborate a little bit on the legal requirements in the sense that I guide the students, how will you go about to establish a sole proprietorship? How will you go about to establish a private company? So that had been added. Something that you also have to do now, it was actually in Module 9, but I'm not sure how many lecturers did it, is the presentation of the business plan. I did include for you a rubric or a checklist, I think, guiding you on how you should evaluate the presentation of the business plan. Remember, you already assessed the written business plan, the content. So when the presentation is done, you don't as such evaluate the content again, but your focus will be on the presentation. But I'm very excited, to come back to the business plan, because right through the textbook, you will also see a little symbol, pause and clause. So wherever the business plan is dealt with in the other modules, reference is made to the annexure at the back of the book. Module 6, a very long module. You are very familiar with this. Module 3 and Module 6 actually go hand in hand. Also, no curriculum changes, but for a very well presentation in color of all 4 P's of the marketing mix. In here, you also find calculations. We are currently in the process of developing the PowerPoint slides for all these modules as well. And then we will add explanations, voice recordings to some of these, like explaining the sales scenario, the calculation of gross profit and net profit, obviously the cash flow statement, to even make it easier for you, and the students can also access that and listen to it again. Management plan, as you all know, that closed corporations cannot be established anymore. Current ones can still continue, but your students should not, when writing a business plan, create a closed corporation any longer. Module 8, a short one but compact, where we look at the financial plan. Now, with the use of color in the book, the explaining of the cash flow statement is now very, very clear, because the arrows is in blue or are in blue. I could insert the specific number where it is dealt with in the receipts and the payments. Now, as I've said before, this is one of the aspects that we will need or add a voice recording to the PowerPoint slides. So if I can just summarize, well, let me first say it should be very clear to you that with regard to the syllabus, you are already fully equipped, as hardly anything changed. But when you look at the student book, a lot changed, because we placed even more emphasis on practical situations. We brought our applications in line with the world now, so it's not outdated. We updated the terminology. For example, the balance sheet is now referred to as the statement of financial position. Debtors are now trades receivable. Creditors are trades payable. I added in the one module, module 3, also the pull and push strategy that had not been in the previous textbook. Yes, and we also took out outdated practices and terms. Now we come to the special features of this textbook. Every module starts with an overview of the syllabus for that specific module. And I can guarantee you, we took it number by number from the new syllabus. And what you see here in the book is exactly the textbook. We did not omit a single thing. And the book had been screened by DHET and it was recommended. Every module also starts with a starter activity. For example, if you look at this one, the COVID-19 pandemic forced many businesses to come up with creative and new ideas on how to survive. Below are examples of ideas converted into opportunities because a market had opened up for them. And then I've given the 6 pictures, and then the students have to say, how had they been affected? Was it to their advantage or their disadvantage? How did they overcome the problems, etc.? A lot of examples. And this time it's very nice because it's all nice and colorful. Activities, as you can see, I spoke about the color coding. Here you can see all activities will be highlighted in this orange so that you can immediately know what the students will have to do now, an activity. And we're coming to this feature later, but there is a lecturer guide with all the answers of all the activities. Diagrams, pictures. Remember, students tend to remember diagrams, tables, mind maps much better than just sentences and sentences. So normally when I try to explain a whole module and there is a nice diagram or picture, I start with that first, and then we break it down in the smaller elements of that module. Yes, also exam tips right through the book, of which I always say, for me, the most important one is do not copy from your textbook. Now, sometimes if you look at the papers, it is here and there literally impossible not to copy from the textbook, because the question had been set in such a way that, I mean, if I say to you in an open book, describe the 4 Ps, that question in the first place should not have been in an open book. But what I normally say to the students, when you answer a case study, and in the case study, the person's name is John, then you combine John's story with the theory, but you don't copy from the textbook. The markers in the external exam are very, very strict on this. We need all the necessary new vocabulary. You will find it in the margins of the textbook, and you will also find at the end of the book a full glossary of all the terms in the book. Infograms. This is now where we took from the web with permission certain diagrams, like if you look here on the one, again, the mind tends to remember the steps if you see it. Define the problem, generate ideas, identify good ideas, identify the opportunities, will it be worthwhile? You see, so, and also the presentation of the very well-known SWOT analysis. Now, the SWOT analysis, although not necessary for a very comprehensive discussion in 4, I did include it because the students can't answer questions on the SWOT analysis if they don't have enough theory. They also can't deal with this in their business plan. Strictly speaking, the in-depth discussion of the SWOT analysis is only in N5, but you will realize that it's crucial for N4 as well. When you lecture this section and you look at the threats, and I always say to the students, certain threats will be, I can almost say, generic. Crime, increase in unemployment, increase in petrol now, see what we are going to pay from today, and so we can go on. We also try to move closer and closer to the whole idea of online. So we also included links that students can access. And now with COVID and the students that only could come to class half of the time, I'm sure all of you started already with, how can I reach my students online? Some used Teams, some used Google Classroom, some used just the WhatsApp system, because obviously we also need to keep in mind the data usage. Now, the whole idea of this book is also to make the student's book plus the lecturer's guide plus the PowerPoint presentations so user-friendly that the subject can also be offered online. Outstanding feature, relevant case studies, and very much based on true stories, the young entrepreneurs. When I had a look at this case study 2.1, turning tired old tires into practical furniture. How amazing. I don't know whether you've seen this, but this is just a small part of that whole article. And I just think it's amazing how entrepreneurs can think. You will also find a summary at the end of each module. Always good for the students to view just before they go into the exam room, specifically for the closed book exam. The summative assessments are of a very high standard. It looks exactly like the students can expect in the final exam. It will right through consist of a section A and a section B. In other words, the closed book exam and the open book exam. Yes, and then I think the students will love this. A complete business plan at the end of the book. So whenever you do a certain part that they have to complete, and remember what I said at the beginning, let them start very early, almost right at the beginning. So you will do module 1, and what you find in there that has reference to the business plan, you can show them what it looks like in this completed business plan at the end of the module. And as I've said before, keep it simple. The glossary, I already referred you to. And here, yes, I'm just repeating again what I've said very often during the webinar. It's color-coded. The case studies are in pink, summaries in light yellow, business plan in green, etc. Financial explanations is easier to understand owing to the use of color. Newly added scenarios. But you will also see that I kept the case studies and the activities that are still relevant. Suitable for online education, and I actually want to stress this point. You've got now a student guide. A student workbook, plus the lecturer's guide, plus PowerPoint slides with voice recordings. The only thing that you actually, if you want to compile a study guide, you put it together and you put in the work scheme. Now, the work scheme also had been compiled for you. That you will find in the lecturer's guide. Everything that you need is already there. Here I come to it. A comprehensive lecturer's guide. A workbook wherein you will find, yes, a workbook is for the student. You know, I've noted that our own college, if there are 10 EBM lecturers, this one makes this little small book with exercises, that one makes that little small book. But at the end, if the student gets this workbook where he can do the whole book's exercises in, and he can take it into the exam room, because remember, they're not allowed to take in previous DHET papers. But in that workbook of them, they can take it into it's nicely everything together, not on scraps of papers where they've done their exercises. It can also help them a lot. You will find in here a compiled or a suggested teaching plan, week 1, week 2, week 3, which you can just easily adapt. You will find a lesson plan template with the content of the whole book, and you can just put in dates. You will get the answers to all the exercises and also the marking guideline to a practice exam that you can also use for revision. Yes, and I think this is the end of my story. I really hope that you will get this textbook. You can view it. Remember, the first copy that you will get is a promo copy. So if we still become aware of errors, we will definitely rectify that before the final book will be printed and sent to the colleges. Once again, my sincere thanks to Macmillan for giving me this opportunity, and also to you that took the time to log into this webinar. Take care.
Thank you, Alma. Thank you for sharing your vast knowledge and expertise with the audience this afternoon. I'm sure they've benefited from everything you've shared. Moving on to our Q&A from Albert van der Merwe. Is the business plan template used in alignment with the requirements of the major banks in South Africa? So do you want to answer that question first?
You see, obviously, every bank will have a different template that they want to have or want to see completed. But I'm almost sure that if you've got the standard business plan, because I had a look at a lot of templates for business plans, and they are all basically the same. So I'm sure even if these forms should differ, the learner can easily just transfer what he or she compiled in his own business plan to that particular form.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Albert. And the second question from Albert, are the financial concepts used in alignment with the financial concepts used in school subjects such as accounting?
What we did is yes, it is, because that is where the changes come in. We recently had to update the financial management in 4 textbook, because they are now using all, as from school, the same terms. Now, with regard to EBM in 4, there are not a lot of changes, because you don't deal in depth with that, but those that needed to be changed had been changed. Like the income statement is now the profit and loss statement, the balance sheet is the statement of financial position. So I think basically the ones that are addressed in EBM in 4 are actually only the 4. Trades receivable is your debtors, trades payable is your creditors. So yes, we did update it to the newest information.
Thank you for that response. From Michelle Appley, how can the practical running of a business on campus be included in the 3 assessments in your opinion?
You see, what we did once at our campus was to have a market day, where the students could bring their products and sell it, so that they can see how they do the planning and how they execute it and how they can draft their cash flow statement. So this is the nearest that I can think you can come to the practical. In the I don't know whether you are aware, but the EBM in 5 syllabus is also in the process of being upgraded, and that will be implemented in July next year. And I know that they address practical implication of the theoretical in 5.
Thank you for the question and the response as well. Just to reiterate, in the chat box, you will find the links to both the student book and the lecturer guide, which you can access immediately whilst waiting for a print copy to arrive at your campus. So please copy the link and paste it somewhere where you could have a look at it later. From Lemohang Sekolane, do you have online business plan template and how do we access it?
We are in the process of developing online facilities, but with regard, if I understand your question now correctly, I might have missed it now, but with the book will also come a CD with templates like the business plan template that can be downloaded.
Okay, great. Again, from Michelle, I found that students doing practical work do better in the final exam. Your comment on that, Elma?
Does she mean that they do better in the final exam than in their own tests? Or what does she mean?
She says, I found that students doing practical work do better in the final.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I'm with you now. Yes, because they experience how it is done. Again, I'm not allowed to say too much, but this is what the department is now specifically bringing in N5. There is going to be a task that the students will have to go out and do practical themselves in a business to link the theory to the practical. The moment you do things that you study, then it's excellent. And I really think we need to motivate the students to really become entrepreneurs already in N4. They can start very, very small, even selling things amongst themselves, but we need to link what they study with being an entrepreneur. And I think that is also why I try to include in the textbook the stories of young entrepreneurs. It's just amazing if you read how small they started and how big they became. Look at this tire place. There was another case study on techies. There's another one on Airbnb. Relevant stories of how they started very small and how big they are now.
Okay, just a comment from Michelle. After doing practice, they can answer better. Not all do N5. And then another one from Albert. Without advertising a company, but he mentions the name, it's Sanlam, provides the most comprehensive business plan. Must I start it again?
Okay. Unfortunately, No, I think I got it. Unfortunately, some business plans are very, very comprehensive and complicated. Right. And I think that is where, you remember I also said somewhere about mentoring. If a person should really come to you as the lecturer with such a business plan, I think that is where your role as mentor comes in.
Great, thanks. Michelle has messaged me. She says she's got a nice rubric for the market day if anybody wants to use it. So Michelle, if you send it to me, I've got a database of all that attended today and I can just share it with them if they are interested in having a look at it. Thanks,
Thank you
Michelle.
so, yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. You know, I want to say this is not a one-man show, you know, where we can assist each other. Of course, a lot of ideas always, you know, give the opportunity for something new.
Great, thank you. Anything further? Anyone else would like to seek clarity or just comment on today's presentation? Any feedback from your side? Okay, no further questions. So I think it's, oh, thank you for an excellent presentation. Thank you, Albert. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your time. I know it's a busy time at colleges, and thanks for making time. I'm sure it's because you are quite interested in your subject and you just want to broaden your knowledge, and I hope today's presentation has assisted you in doing this. So as I mentioned earlier, the links are available on the chat box, so please make a note of that. And then just some final comments from Alma before she closes off. And as I mentioned, Alma is a seasoned expert and she's authored many books. So just some final comments before we say goodbye to everyone.
Yes, I just thank thank the people that took the time. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. It just shows that you really love the subject. You know, it's a subject that you can offer so lively. And wherever I can assist, please, I will be available. And take care.
Thank you very much, Alma. Take care, everyone. All the best for the rest of the year.